To All the Jural Assemblies Part 16. Notaries by Anna von Reitz. The actual office of the public notary is very important and very powerful. Our notaries carry more power and hold a higher office than their corporate state-of-state chief justices. The problem has been that we haven't been able to access our public notaries and have had to rely on, from our perspective, Notary Publics instead, because our State Jural Assemblies haven't been operating properly and haven't been electing confirming our State Public Notaries. This is a good place to explain the federal mirror. Our public is their private, and vice versa, from our respective viewpoints. This is because they are operating foreign governments, one territorial, one municipal, on our shores. From their perspective, the federal constitutions are the law of the land, but from our perspective, these same documents are the law of the sea. Why? Because from their perspective, these agreements dictate how they operate when they come ashore and interact with the land jurisdiction, but from our perspective, these agreements dictate how our employees who are all operating exclusively in the sea jurisdiction are supposed to operate with respect to us. Thus, when you read federal code and federal statutes and also the state-of-state codes and state-of-state statutes of their franchises, you will find references to non-resident aliens and foreigners. From their perspective as foreign governments, that's you. With respect to them and their watery territorial domain, you are non-resident and alien, that is, not a territorial or municipal citizen. And the same thing is true in reverse. Federal employees are acting in capacities and in a jurisdiction that is literally alien and foreign with respect to us. The states have only one kind of citizenship, and that is state citizenship, but the federales can have dual citizenship. Dual citizenship means a single man has obligations and rights and duties conferred by two or more governments. Originally, employees of the territorial and municipal United States governments were allowed to claim, from the perspective of those governments, dual citizenship, because they couldn't get Americans to work for them otherwise. Thus Americans working for the federal government could furlough but retain their American state citizenship while working as U.S. citizens. Both military and civilian federal employees have always been obliged to adopt U.S. citizenship while in the employment of the federal government, but such citizenship is supposed to be of a transitory nature that is supposed to terminate automatically upon them leaving such employment, retiring from such employment, or dying. That is, their reversion to state national political status is supposed to be automatic. Unfortunately, like many other self-interested policies perpetuated by corporations in the business of providing governmental services, this record-keeping was accidentally on purpose neglected, and former federal employees have been routinely presumed to voluntarily stay in the status of U.S. citizens until and unless their former federal employers are notified otherwise. Many men and women who have been grateful to leave the military behind, and many former federal civilian service employees who have been grateful to retire, have been secretively retained and left on the record as U.S. citizens, an unconscionable practice which has served to deny these loyal Americans the natural and unalienable rights and constitutional guarantees they are heir to. It also means that people leaving federal employment have to look to this detail for themselves, and state jural assemblies must make reasonable effort to make sure that their members and state nationals recording their permanent domiciles have properly notified all prior federal employers of their return home to their natural birthright political status. Today, federales including primarily Democratic Congress members use these dual citizenship provisions to claim citizenship in foreign countries like Israel or Japan and have no relationship with the actual American states they are claiming to represent at all. That makes it easier for them to sell the actual states and people down the drain with no consequences for themselves, and creates an intrinsic undeclared conflict of interest. As a result of all this, when we think of something as public, as in public notary, we are thinking of our public notaries, which are public officials, but when they think of public notary, they are thinking of their public notaries, which are private corporate officers. From our perspective, their public notaries are like their sheriffs, working in a totally different jurisdiction and in separate, private corporate for higher positions, even while performing a public function. Their private corporate public notaries, like their sheriffs, can put on a different hat and serve the public law if they want to, but as private vendors they can also refuse to serve in a public capacity. Our land and soil jurisdiction public notaries are confirmed in office as elected public officials. They use stamps and red ink. Their C jurisdiction, public notaries, are commissioned as officers of their private state-of-state corporations. They use seals and blue ink. Again, we see the difference between an official and an officer. While our State Jural Assembly recorders keep and transfer records as appropriate for Jural Assembly members and state nationals, and also officially record the actions taken by the State Jural Assembly itself, our public notaries process and witness and transfer the public records of the county, the state, and the people. Our public notaries are members of our county and state courts and hold a position of trust similar to that of a state justice or county justice of the peace. Properly overseen due process proceedings subject to declaratory judgment by an elected public notary have the full force and effect of the public law and cannot be reviewed or overturned by any private agency or state-of-state court. Each actual public notary elected should be rigorously trained in due process proceedings and supplied with a red ink public notary stamp saying simply, Ohio Notary, for example, some distinctive design or logo, and the term of their office like this, in office, the 1st of September 2016 to the 30th of November 2019. Jural assemblies are free to accept and adopt unique logos for their use and should formally do so while in session and should record images of the logos they are using and attach a small C in a circle copyright notice to the artwork or designs their recorders and notaries are using to stamp paperwork. The often thankless work of a good elected public notary is an invaluable service to the state, the counties, and the people. They provide a reliable and official witness to the business transactions and records upon which we depend to secure our identities and control our assets and invoke the public and organic law owed to our country. Please hit subscribe, like, share and get ready for many more Anna von Reitz videos.